So in this video, I'm going to share 11 productivity hacks that I use to optimize my day and maximize the amount of time that I have throughout my everyday life. So time is one of our greatest assets. It's a finite resource, so it's very important to understand how we are spending our time and deliberately be productive when we need to get work done versus when we want to have some leisure. Because if you're in the situation, and I found myself in this situation many times, where you might be working all day on a project, maybe it's for school, maybe you're working on a business, maybe you're working for your company, and you find at the end of the day, you're standing there scratching your head wondering what you actually achieved during that day. How productive were you? And in a lot of cases, we find ourselves lacking productivity. So hopefully in this video, we can share these 11 different ideas for becoming more productive throughout your everyday life so that you can spend less time doing tasks that maybe you don't enjoy and spending more time working on tasks that maybe you do have more fun with, maybe spending time with friends or family, having more time in your life. Because like I said, we all only have 24 hours in a day. It's how we spend it that's going to really decide whether we are succeeding or failing at any particular task that we're attempting to achieve. So let's get started here with the first one, and that is by setting simple goals and writing them down. Now, this is so basic, but it is absolutely important if you're not doing this. Now, what I do is I work backwards, and I actually set yearly goals because I'm working from a business standpoint. I set yearly goals, monthly goals, weekly goals, and then daily goals. So daily goals are very, very important. And what I would suggest doing, rather than what most people will do, where they'll wake up and they'll write down some things that they have to do for that day, what I would do is create this list the night before you go to bed, so that you're able to think about this overnight and think about any other tasks that you may have forgotten that you want to include on the list. And creating it a little bit beforehand is going to help you versus if you wake up, suddenly you're scrambling because you realize you have too many things to do on that particular day. It's much better to create that to-do list the night before, write them down. If you're not writing them down, it's going to really hurt you. Just trying to keep that all in your brain, you might forget some of them, or it might be difficult to fully picture what exactly you have to do for that particular day. So the next one here is something that so many people are doing that I think is really hurting them, and it's by actually sleeping with your phone next to you. So I would argue that over 90% of people are doing this, where maybe they charge their phone next to their bed. Some people sleep with their phone in their bed, and they're scrolling through Instagram, or they're looking at BuzzFeed or some other things on Snapchat. You go down to the browse section, you can spend a lot of time on that, right? Let's be real here. A lot of people spend an hour or two in bed just scrolling through social media. So what I would suggest doing, and what I do, is I put my phone on the other side of the room. I charge it over there, and it does two things. First of all, it's that when I go to bed, I'm able to sleep and I'm not looking at my phone. But also, when I wake up in the morning, my alarm goes off on my phone, and I have to get out of bed to get that alarm. A lot of people, when they're sleeping, if they have their phone next to their bed, they'll just hit snooze, they'll hit snooze, they'll hit snooze, and the next thing they know, it's 10 a.m. and they haven't done anything for the day. Maybe it's Saturday, maybe it's a Sunday, whatever it is, having it on the other side of the room really helps become more productive is what I found. The next one here is, once again, somewhat simple, but very, very important. It's by block scheduling. So a great idea behind this, if you've ever read The 4-Hour Workweek, some people love it, some people hate it, but some of the ideas behind it are very interesting. One of them being to really block out time in your schedule for certain tasks. So for example, if you're trying to get work done and every 5 minutes you're getting a new email coming into your inbox, and you check out the email, you respond to the email, maybe it's for work, maybe it's not, maybe it's an email from H&M and you got a nice discount, you want to buy some shirts. It's very distracting to have all these different notifications coming in and trying to manage different tasks at the same time. So create some block scheduling where you say, for the next hour, I'm going to do this and only this. Anything else that comes up, it's probably not that important. I can handle it after this hour, and I can just focus on what I have to do right now. Block scheduling, create blocks where you're doing 1 to 2 hours per task that you're attempting to manage instead of trying to do multiple at the same time. It doesn't work very well. So the next one is called Labyrinth's Law, and it's simply by managing tasks that are more difficult first in the morning rather than pushing them off for later in the day. And that's because, let's be honest, as we go throughout the day, our brain gets tired. We're not as sharp as we were if we've been working for 10 hours. So handling those really difficult tasks, maybe you're crunching numbers, maybe you're doing some hard math, and you want to do that earlier in the day rather than waiting until 8 p.m. to try to attempt to do this. This goes with studying for school as well. If it's 2 a.m. and you go to the library and try to study, you're probably not going to retain as much information as maybe you would if it was 2 p.m. So that's just something you do want to think about on how you're actually managing your workflow and putting those more difficult tasks up front and handling them first. The next one here is to be proactive instead of being reactive to your day. So if you've heard in one video that I made previously about how I really don't look at my phone in the first hour of the day. And that's because essentially what happens is you can become reactive to all these things. And going back to what I mentioned earlier today about how if you're getting emails and they're coming in, or you're getting texts, or you're getting notifications, and you're reacting to all these things throughout your life, and maybe there's people calling you, maybe people want some of your time, and you're reacting to all these different things throughout your life, instead of being proactive and sort of cutting these things out and turning off notifications, blocking certain things. I know that for myself, I have my phone on Do Not Disturb for most of the day. I'll put it in airplane mode if I have to for most of the day, or not even have it on me because I don't trust myself to not scroll through Instagram or scroll through YouTube. It's also very important to stop multitasking. I don't know why people try to do this. Your brain can't go two different directions at the same time. Now, if you are, say, walking and learning, or walking and talking on the phone during a business meeting, it's a little bit different than trying to literally do two tasks at the same time. Our brain doesn't work like that. And so because of that, you're going to have to realize that you want to focus on one topic or another, one subject or another, but don't try to focus on two at the same time. It actually causes a lot less productivity, and you're not able to maximize your day because you're switching back and forth. And that time where it takes you to sort of go from one thought process to then switch over to do something else. Maybe you're working on two completely different projects. The more different they are, the more difficult it's going to be to switch in between and to sort of get into the groove of working on each one of those things. One more here that I'm going to add just as a tip is to be physically active in some way. This actually really helps productivity. If you look at the amount of time that Americans are spending exercising, especially in the workplace, it's very, very low. Generally, people wake up, they go to work, they get back from work, and they sit down and they don't exercise at all. You don't have to go on runs, you don't have to be a marathon runner, you don't have to be a power lifter, but make sure that you're at least going and walking somewhere, exercising, maybe swimming, something to do some physical activity. I know for myself, I get very antsy if I find myself sitting for more than an hour at a time, or standing for more than an hour at a time, or doing anything for more than an hour at a time. I have to move. I have to go into a different position, maybe stand up. I have a standing desk and a sitting desk, so I can alternate between those two to make sure that I'm moving around a little bit. I think people get sort of trapped and they sort of cement up, and they get very stiff when they're sitting there typing on their keyboard for 8 hours straight. It's probably not a good idea. Number 4 here is limiting these small distractions that we have throughout our everyday life. Now, what I mean by this is it happens so often, but let's say that you are attempting to sit down, you're trying to get some work done, whatever it may be, right? And you realize, you know what, tonight's trash night. I have to take out the trash. So you get up and you take out the trash, and then you sit back down and you say, oh, well, you know what? I'm going on vacation tomorrow. I want to fill up my car with gas because I don't want it to be, half tank on my car. So then you go do that. And then you say, I'm a little bit hungry. You go do that. Essentially what happens is people like to procrastinate. We love procrastinating. And so we'll find excuses to essentially not work. Maybe we'll go visit our grandparents, or maybe we'll go do something else. And we end up essentially creating these excuses for why we're not actually doing things that we need to do. So literally block out everything, whatever you have to do, to just sit down and focus on what it is that you have to do, and realize that maybe you're making an excuse versus actually getting some work done. Okay, so the next productivity hack that I've used that's worked very well, it's probably not for everyone. I'm just going to leave a little disclaimer there because it worked very well for myself. This is probably the one that has had the largest impact on myself, but like I said, it's probably not for everyone. And that's by understanding that there's really two different driving factors for ways that we make decisions. So there's pain and there's pleasure for driving us towards our goals. So for example, the pleasure side of it is if you set a goal and you win or you accomplish that goal, you feel good about yourself, right? You feel good. Maybe you wanted to run a 5K and you wanted to win first place. You feel really good when you do that, right? So that's the pleasure side of it, knowing that if you train for this 5K and you start running every day and training, that one day you might be able to achieve that goal of getting first place. But the other side of this is the pain side of it, which can be a little bit dangerous. But if you have something that's driving you for accomplishing a goal that could essentially cause pain if you don't accomplish that goal, that's another idea. So I'm just going to share this with you right here. What I did is I wrote a check to a political campaign that I'm not a very big fan of, and I instructed one of my close friends to deliver this check, to mail this check to this political campaign if I didn't reach my goals for June. I tried it out in June. I'm not sure where the idea came from, but it was just a simple pain versus pleasure. And I accomplished so much in June. I did everything that I had to do because I did not want this check going to this political campaign that I'm not a big fan of. It works for myself. Now, like I said, it's probably not for everyone. I'm in a position where I find myself with very little stress. I don't have kids. I don't have a stressful relationship. I don't have a large amount of responsibilities or a large amount of debt that is overwhelming stress. So for myself, adding a tad bit of stress to my life, actually, I found was very, very beneficial. But like I said, little disclaimer there, it's not for everybody. If you're already very stressed and you don't want to do that, then don't use the pain side of it, but find a pleasure point where you're able to essentially reach that goal and work towards that by thinking about the outcome, the positive outcome of that goal on a daily basis. So another one is to simply track your sleep. So track your sleep, because what I found what I was doing for many, many years is I would wake up a little bit later in the day. And what would happen is I didn't have blinds on my curtains, or I had curtains, but they were very, very thin. And sometimes I would leave them open. So what would happen is around 6 a.m. or so, maybe 7 a.m., depending what time of the year it was, the sun would come up and I would have maybe went to bed at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. Sometimes I would be up very late working, right? But as soon as the sun would come up, my sleeping pattern would become a very light sleep. And I found this out because I was tracking it with health monitors to see why I wasn't sleeping very well. So what I did is I got some blackout curtains, so I was able to control the light in my room so that if I happened to fall asleep very late that day, if I was up working until 5 a.m., then I was able to sleep earlier or later into the morning or into the day without having that effect of having a bright sun in my face while I was trying to sleep and really bringing me out of that deep REM. So get a sleep monitor, find something to track your health so that you're able to see where you are losing sleep, how well you're sleeping, and how you can optimize it, because sleep is so incredibly important to becoming productive. Now, what I would suggest doing is honestly just wake up earlier. I've always considered myself a night owl. I've always been up very, very late, but I've been able to really flip that around over time. Took some training. Sometimes I slip back into the habit of going to bed very late and working very late into the night. But I've gotten much better to the point where, waking up 6 a.m. generally to accomplish my day, because then you are being proactive about your day and you're able to tackle your day, versus sometimes if you've ever woken up at 10 a.m. or 11 a.m., you'll know that you feel almost as though you're playing catch up throughout the day, because everybody else has been awake for many hours and they're already eating their lunch, and you wake up and you start to eat breakfast. It just feels very weird and you feel like you are behind. The final one here is to become a no man. So if you've ever seen the movie Yes Man, it's one of my favorite movies. It's really hilarious, Jim Carrey, right? But he essentially becomes a yes man. And what happens here is he says yes to everything. He says yes when people ask him to do things with him, and he ends up having no time to himself. Well, what you want to do is sort of become a no man in a little bit of a sense. So if people are asking you, hey, do you want to go out and go to some bars tonight? Or maybe do you want to go on this vacation with us? And there's obviously a time and place for it where you can say, yes, I do want to do that. But learn how to say no to people. I have struggled with this many times in the past, where I'm always saying yes to trips. When somebody says, do you want to go to this country? Do you want to go to this city? I always say yes, yes, yes. But now I'm getting to the point where I'm saying no a little bit more. I'm being a little bit more selective with it, because if you're really focused on being productive and accomplishing something, then it is important to learn when to say no and when to say yes, and whether or not it's going to benefit you in the long run. Like I said, though, make sure that you're still having fun in life. Don't become a Scrooge and don't say no to everything. So those are the ones on this list. Hopefully you found some value in it. Hopefully you're going to be more productive in your life. And if you are, let me know down in the comment sections below. Maybe send me a DM. Let me know how your productivity is going throughout your life. So thanks for watching, and I'll see everybody in the next video.